Hi everyone. I often get asked, should I refuse a test if I get arrested for a DUI? This is Christina Williams with Just Criminal Law.
And this is David Mann, legal storytelling specialist. Okay, so should I refuse a test when I get stopped for a DUI? What are the tests?
Well, you'll be asked to either give a sample of your breath or a sample of your blood or urine.
All right, so the first one, there's the blood test, there's the breath test. Are we talking about the breath test that happens by the side of the road in the field sobriety test?
No, so that is a test that the officer may ask you to take, and that's out in the field. What we are talking about is once you get to the jail and the officer, reads you your implied consent and asks you if you'll submit to a test. They are asking you, first of all, if you'll submit to a breath test generally, and that's the ECIR machine. It's a big machine that sits on a table, not a little portable handheld device. And they're going to ask you if you will blow into that machine if they suspect you of being under the influence of alcohol.
Okay. So far we're just talking about somebody being stopped with the suspicion of being under the influence for alcohol. So that's the breath test. And then the other one's the blood test, right?
Right, and so if they suspect that you're under the influence of a controlled substance that's not going to be measured in your breath, like marijuana or some other drug, then they will ask you to take a blood or a urine test. And most often they're just going to ask for the blood test. And so those are the two types of tests that you will be asked to give if you go to the jail.
Okay, so to answer the question that we kicked off in this, should I refuse one of those? What's the answer?
Well, you can refuse to take a test, just like if law enforcement was knocking at the door of your house and wanted to come in, you can say no, but then law enforcement can go to the judge and get a warrant, which is exactly what they'll do. And at that point in time, the judge issues a warrant for your blood, and so they're then able to extract that sample from you.
Okay, I see. So, all right. So is there an advantage to doing one of these versus the other one? I mean, in other words, not refusing the breath test and just taking it and avoiding this blood test? How are they the same? Do you get the same result, I guess?
Well, in my experience, when you submit to a breath test and then you ask for a blood test, which you can do, you can ask for both. When I compare those results side by side, every single time I've seen that happen, the blood is always slightly higher. So for whatever reason, your blood's gonna come in a little bit higher than your breath. And that can make a big difference depending on your circumstances of the outcome of your case.
So, okay, yeah, I mean, well, I think we all know that the legal limit is 0.08. So that means you could possibly blow with the breath test a 0.07, but then if you say, well, I'm not going to do that, you never knew that it would have been 0.07, and now you get the blood test and it says 0.09. Is that possible?
Right. So, I mean, it can, if it's a close call, it can tip you over the edge, and actually, then the state has no problem proving their case if you come back at 0.08 or greater. Generally, if they're allowed to use that result against you, then it's an easier case for the state, versus if you took the breath test and you came back at 0.07, then there's lots more wiggle room in negotiating a deal for you. Same thing for your driver's license. So a lot of people don't know this, but if you're a 0.15 or greater, you're going to have an interlock device installed in your vehicle. And so if you come in at a 0.14 for your breath test, you're not going to have that interlock. But if you decide you want a blood test and that result is slightly higher, you're not going to know you're a 0.04 on the breath test because you will have elected a blood test, and then you're stuck with the interlock if you're a 0.15 or higher.
Okay, I see. So there's a threshold. And you may exercise your right to refuse the breath test, but you may end up with a warrant for a blood test and get in, kind of more hot water. So what it sounds like.
Right, and just, a little bit of bonus content here. The mistakes that I see law enforcement make in obtaining a test result are more often with how they conduct the breath test. So they are supposed to follow certain steps, and if they don't follow them, then we can ask the court to not let that sample in. And I see that type of mistake more often than I see a mistake in how they do the blood draw.
All right, so again, all these things are hard for ordinary people to work out on their own, and they need probably to have a lawyer close by to look for mistakes possibly like that. And how would they get in touch with you?
Sure, we'll include a link in the description where they can call, text, or chat with a member of my team anytime, day or night. Here at Just Criminal Law, we know you only get one shot at justice, so make yours count.